Is "if you can't afford to tip, don't eat out" a classist statement? What's bugging me lately is that the UK has seemed to adopt this US approach of adding the tip to the bill. And now you have to ask to remove it. Tipping was always optional and not expected in the UK, yet now it's becoming very awkward at the end of your meal having to ask a server to remove or reduce the optional tip on the bill. The statement really should be, if you can't afford to pay your employees, don't open a business. From a third world country where tipping is optional. Yeah, that statement weirds the hell out of me. Maybe blame the boss for not paying their employees and pushing the difference onto their customers? Literally the only business that does this. Any other place just gives me a bill and I pay it. How about if you can't pay decent wages? Don't set up a business. As someone from Ireland, I hate American tipping culture. Fight for better wages instead of hating people who don't want to pay an extra 20% on top of the advertised price. It's ridiculous that it's workers versus customers and not workers looking for better wages from their employer. I'm not a fan of tipping, but most Americans, especially those who have worked in the service sector, calculate that into the cost. I don't go to a restaurant where 2 meals are $25 expecting to pay $25. I know there is tax that will be a few dollars and tip will be near $6 with a total cost closer to $35. I would vastly prefer that the list price just be $35, but it is what it is. Not being an idiot, I can count that in when we go out. Do you feel that expensive restaurants should ask everyone to pay the full price? Should they allow people who can't pay to have that food? Our system is stupid, but our service workers deserve to be paid more than customers deserve to make a point. Maybe we should revise it to if you can't afford to tip. Don't go to a restaurant per bar where the server's income is dependent on tips. There are places where that is not the case. I understand feeling negatively about how owners don't pay employees enough. The answer is not to take it out on the employee though. And besides, if you really feel that negatively about the owner, why would you want to give them your money anyway? They are only person who wins in the scenario where you go and don't tip. Not at all. Literally, I've been so broke it ain't funny, and I've also been doing good. I'd literally never go to a restaurant and not tip the server. Literally every restaurant has a to-go ordering option. Even if you don't want to do it online, the bartender usually takes to-go orders and rings them in. No tipping required. Though it is nice to tip the to-go people too. I don't get why you would tip in Canada when servers get paid min wage and min wage is at $15–16. We don't tip people on retail who help us with shopping. So why is that a thing still? Isn't it that the whole point is that in the US servers get so little in wage, so you tip to make up for it? But like, that's a broken system. I shouldn't have to tip to compensate for the exploitation of workers. Instead, people should try to get servers the amount they deserve to get paid so that they're no longer exploited. It's such a broken system. No, it's not classist. And by now there are surely tons of posts talking about the horrors of tipped wage. From a position outside of the service industry. Some things people should know. It's a broken system. Like a sinking ship kept afloat with duct tape and bubble gum. But it does float. Most businesses in the industries involved would prefer to eliminate it. But we can't. Your prices are arbitrarily lower because of tipped wage. Businesses that have tried to go their own way have been called too expensive for paying employees a flat wage and charging the actual price of goods. It's always a tiny amount. But the vocal yelping asshole will complain about 75 cents. Your service staff wants tipped wage. The people who quit first at restaurants who go to flat wages are your bar staff and service staff. So there goes the myth of the greedy business taking advantage of poor service workers. Most management, ownership I've spoken to, been in this work a long time, would prefer to pay a living wage and charge you what goods cost in the US. That leads to staff being unhappy, customers saying you're too expensive, but your accountant is finally cheerful. Much easier bookkeeping. Only way it ever goes away is by law. And that's not likely. So you tip so that you're paying what your food and drinks should have cost and so that your server can game the system. No shots fired. I like my tips too. You're paying the same as you'd be paying if we did away with tipping. That 1,520% would just be built in. It'd be a $25 meal either way, etc. Slightly off topic, but I'm a bartender who will occasionally wait tables. I enjoy the tipping culture. Most people I work with also enjoy tipping. I can make my rent in 2 busy shifts. I can safely say I would not do this job a fair hourly wage of $15-20 an hour. I am just so goddamn tired of being preached at by people who have never worked in the restaurant industry, supposedly advocating on our behalf. If you want to complain about it, fine, but don't pretend you're speaking for servers, bartenders. Not really. I choose not to encourage tipping as a means of acquiring service at all. Any service that relies on tipping I just don't use. I don't eat out, I don't get rides, and I don't order groceries to be delivered. No tips are owed because no service is rendered. That said, if I get dragged out to a company thing or a meet-up with a family member, I will tip. It's after all their only means of making money, so you have to when you use their service. Tipping is a scam played on the poor workers by bosses to let them get away with underpaying them. My take on it is, okay, I won't eat out then. And I don't. Generally. I have no problem paying $15 for a salad. Just don't expect me to pay $20 for it if it's on the menu as $15. If the only way you can pay your employees a fair wage is to charge $20 for a salad, then charge $20 for a salad. The worst offenders are these places that just straight up add a gratuity to the end of the bill, without asking or advertising. Seriously, years ago I'd spend $100, maybe $200 a month eating out. Now though, I went to Subway back in November. And that's it. I disagree with the tipping culture wholeheartedly. It's incredibly toxic and incredibly dumb. But rather than taking, if you can't afford to tip, don't eat out, as the toxic assholery it's usually posted as. Instead, take it as financial budgeting advice. If you don't have enough money to pay more than your meal, you don't have enough to really afford to be going to that place. Stay home and save so that when you do go out you're not spending all you have. I will also add, servers shouldn't expect a tip cause they showed up to work. It actually requires service to earn a tip. Conversely, though, servers in the US make well below minimum wage, with the rest of their wage coming in tips. So is it not then oppressive to essentially choose not to pay them for their work? If you can't tip, eat at places that don't have table service. ETA. I'm not arguing against choosing not to tip in establishments that pay staff a living wage. But in restaurants with table service, that's rarely the case. Some servers think that if they get a low tip, it's because people can't afford it. None of them would ever consider that they provided less than average service. I worked as a server, so I know what they make. If you didn't provide good service, you have no right demanding a good tip. Don't pay too much attention to what servers say. In a cook, they make 50% plus more than me for running my hard work to tables. They show up later, leave earlier. They wipe tables and roll cutlery at close while we scrub hot steel and sweat in the dish pit. No. In America at least. Tipping is how servers get paid. We all know it's a stupid system. But it's nonetheless how things work. It's not fair to the servers that your personal protest or lack of cash results in them being broke while doing the same amount of work. Your other example doesn't really compare. If you go into a shop without cash, you probably aren't wasting anyone's time, and it gives you the option to come back later when you have money if you see something. There is no window shopping equivalent at restaurants.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.